pre-show.
Testing, testing.
What time is it? How long do we have?
What was that reaction?
I'm just away from the booth and I left the kids in charge. So I'm sure it'll be fine. It's a pretty chill environment. Okay, should we just start whenever?
Start. Are we,
Should we introduce ourselves?
I don't know who's...
Okay.
Are we good to go?
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Nathan. I'm here from Cookiecad.
Hi, I'm Melissa. I am co-owner of Cookiecad with Nathan.
Today we're going to be interviewing Mr. Sven, Clockspring 3D himself. Hello.
Hello. And I just am an admirer of Cookiecad.
We're admirer of you.
We are admirer of Sven.
Anytime I get a new color in, I print a flexi skull, which is like, you probably made that just for fun as a quick nothing, and it's my favorite print.
Flexi skull. Do you have one handy?
Oh, handy? Don't mind if I do. So if you don't know, this is the flexi skull. And it's a vase mode print, so if you print in PLA, it still moves. This happens to be TPU, which is a new color that we just came out with. And we're new to the TPU market.
I was just going to say, obviously, you brought that around this morning, and I wore it as a hat.
Yeah.
Because how could you not?
Everyone wears this as a hat, and I'm like, you're not unique. Come up with something else. Wear it as a shoe.
But speaking of TPU,
So Sven, if you don't know, is Australian. Sven, Positron is here.
Check.
And now that it's been released, are you excited that you can finally print right side up?
I got nothing. Something
That was an
wasn't printed,
Australian
something.
joke.
All right, my first question is, do you design, when you're designing, do you ever design for a specific filament, for a specific color or process? I do know that you have some vases that you call vases that are meant for dual extrusions.
Yeah, no, I absolutely. I mean, sometimes I'll design something specifically because I want to show some aspect of a filament. So back before we had, co-extrusions and things, I had one of those awful, cheap color mixing printers that gave that effect unintentionally, and I designed specifically for that sort of thing, like, oh, look, different colors on different angles. But the colors, like gradients, for example, like I'll design things specifically because I want to bring out a certain amount of graduation. Like that print there is great. You get the full extent of that unicorn gradient, which is one of my two favorites. I can't choose between of yours. So yeah, absolutely. And sometimes if I'm working with, say, translucent or clear filaments, I'll design specifically for light to get through or not get through, as the case may be.
Or to show off hexagon infill.
Well, if only you brought that up. You've got, so Melissa has some prints with big, chunky hexagonal infill, and there's enough translucent that it just really adds to the design. And much as I'd like to say that there was any intention in that model, just the fact that you'd applied it that way is just, it's magical with the filament that you're using. So I guess it's not always about designing, it's sometimes just what is your process and how are you bringing out the characteristics of the filament through the process choices as well. Because I'm guessing that you selected an appropriate number of walls so you get light through and all those things, yeah.
Speaking of your design process, when you're designing, does form follow function or function follow form?
Well, occasionally I'll do things that are actually useful. Sometimes 3D printing can actually have practical purposes, but there'll be other times where it's just, I want a wall with these sorts of proportions, or I want this texture, or I want to see, like, would this sort of mechanism work with some cogs or whatever, and then it'll just be building something around that that's just a vector to deliver this one particular element that I'm after. So I have plenty of designs that are really just there because I thought this would be a really tactile, interesting texture, for example. So, and that's one thing I really love about 3D printing and designing for 3D printing is that like these things wouldn't exist otherwise. Like we can say, I wonder how this works. And I guess back in the day, maybe you could sculpt that out of like something traditional like wood or clay or whatever. But now we can be precise and we can say like, oh, I'll build this texture or I'll try this mechanism, and it magically just happens, and it's precise, and it's amazing, and we can change it, and it's repeatable. And yeah, so in terms of form following function or the other way around, I think there are many angles to take these things from, and I probably do all of them.
Well, historically, TPU has been a really hard material to print with. When most of the consumer machines began, the most common machine out in existence, it may still be, was the Ender 3 and all of its clones. Those machines are Bowden machines with pretty weak extruders, and they don't print TPU. So most of the institutional knowledge in the hobbyist market has been revolving around PLA or other stiff materials, PTG and ABS. But now the average consumer machine is perfectly capable of printing TPU. And there are not many designs out there for flexible and TPU models. There are not a lot of colors, which is what we're working to change. And, but it's a wonderful material. It's flexible, it's nearly indestructible. Have you made any designs that were meant to print in TPU? Is this a material that you see yourself designing for in the future?
Well, it's interesting that you comment on that, the traditional feel around TPU, because when you asked me about this previously, I had these kind of PTSD visions of trying to work with that, and it get clogged up in extruders and or just not sticking to build plates, and it was just such a painful thing to work with, and there were limited suppliers. They tend to be inconsistent, so you never knew what you were working with anyway. So it was a material of last resort. So it's like, do you really need something that's a gasket or something like that? Or are you sealing? You're trying to do something flexible that you can't do with a hinge or whatever. It's just like, but last resort, because it was just okay, I guess I have to do this. And a lot of the stuff that I design is. I design for anyone to be able to print these things. So I intentionally make things so that things don't have to be technically precise in terms of there should be a reasonable amount of resilience in the design to allow for printer variations, slicer variations, material variations. And TPU traditionally did not fall into any of those. It was like, if you're printing in TPU, then good luck to you. So, but like you said, TPU it's a material that's very different to PLA. I mean, PLA is much, much better than it used to be, but it's hard, it's brittle, it's suited to some applications, but not others. And TPU it's robust. I mean, I know it's flexible, but I think of just things that will never die. TPU is just such a tough material. I think mallets and things like that. And or like you commented earlier, like phone cases, TPU. So there's things that have a certain amount of give, but they're tough. And the problem though is that you would go out and shop for some TPU, and you could have white, and blue, and red, and maybe green, just flat, mediocre colors, and not inspiring things. But so there's two aspects there. There's like one, it was always really hard to print with, or just really failure prone, and secondly, just not interesting stuff to work with because you'd have these bland options. So I will admit it was a revelation to me that the modern printers that I have lots of were so so capable of dealing with that stuff, to the point where you gave me a spool this morning, and I threw it into a printer that we had running, and I printed in this, and it just worked. It was.
What model is that?
Oh, this model. This is one that will be released in a day or two. It's a Halloweeny one. You can, if you look really hard. We don't have a screen with
We'll pass it around.
But it's a Vase mode model, and
Vase mode.
it's so tough. It's TPU, because I love my Vase mode models because it's a fun constraint to work with, but it's also it's very economical on material. If you're printing, say, Halloween boxes, then it's a great process to do things quickly. But in PLA, I mean, your entire print is a point of vulnerability because every line is just one line connected to the one above it or below it. So, you drop it, it breaks. You pull it, it breaks. You squeeze it, it breaks. But not with this. So it's a really interesting thing to think about, like, what can you do with this sort of thing in TPU where no longer is it a massive compromise on robustness
And reliability.
yeah. So I'm going to just throw this out there. But also, I mean, as you'll see, it's a kind of a purpley, glittery.
You can
like
squish it a lot,
Yeah.
like all the way, and it'll bounce back.
Yeah, and but
Like
since
flip
when
it
is
inside out?
you could actually?
I mean, we
that's
haven't
the
tried
skull
that
one you
yet,
could.
so maybe don't.
But I mean, look, it's like a subtly glittery, purple, shiny. It's not what I think of when I think of TPU.
I love
So-
this idea that hopefully more designers will design for it because it's great for toys. I know my kids love fidgets and stuff, and they
And-
just break.
Yeah, they really
and
do.
you step on them and they're painful. So with TPU you have another element of a fidget because it's also squishy and bendy and stretchy, and so it's really exciting.
TPU Lego would be a lot less painful to step on.
Please Lego.
But like you said, I guess there's an education piece there because I didn't realize that TPU was just easy to work with now, and it's weird that should be a revelation, and obviously you guys are just eternally enthusiastic about these things, and that's how I know. But yeah, it really does make you stop and think, what can you do with this? Because it's very different in terms of designing for something. Working with something that's flexible like that and robust like that really does open up all sorts of other opportunities. Like we talked about articulated models and so on, but obviously you need to design differently because you've got, with your hard materials, you can have minor overlaps and things for hinges. With that stuff, everything can flex apart, which is also potentially useful for assemblies and
You
so
can
on.
do thicker, a joint can maybe be thin, so it's just bending because it's a thin spot.
Well, that's a really good point. So we
Just
were looking
thought
at
about that.
we were looking at a hinged model this morning. Like, would that still work? But maybe that hinge doesn't need to be there, and it could just be a thin connector.
Yeah, I mean, there's in daily life, there's just so many objects we use where they're flexible. I mean, phone cases is one example, but there's gaskets
Shoes.
and rings and shoes.
Hats, belts, there's a lot of
Lot of-
applications in fashion that people are getting into.
Well, funnily enough, the first thing I thought of was if you've ever made a custom case to hold something, like a bit of electronics or I mean, sorry, a container to store things in is what I mean, not like an electronics enclosure. But you do that in, say, PLA or ABS, and you've got a hard plastic thing that you put your metal thing in and it rattles around or whatever, and TPU is far better suited to that sort of thing. So,
Ooh, a backpack.
It's soft, it's quiet when you drop it,
yeah, but I mean, just...
it's forgiving.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I traditionally would use TPU for elements within other models, but that's not because it works better that way. It's because then I'm limiting the amount of failure I get with the TPU part. It's like, I can do the rest of it, and that's reliable, but now we're going to do the TPU. But, I mean, this is just cool.
Yeah, we
It's-
just popped that in to the A1. I
Yeah,
think
just
that's what you
printed
had
on the
on.
A1 bamboo.
You hold that side. It's
Oh.
just,
It's tight a
it's
little on the
tough.
bottom. You
I
might
wore it
have
as a
to bend
belt.
it for the TPU version.
it's.
This was meant to be in PLA.
Yeah, but it bounces right back. I'm excited to see what you can do with this new medium. I think it's going to be really exciting.
Well, the fact that it actually looks nice is just huge. That's just such a big thing.
So we dropped this in the printer. I think you had on your table was an A1.
Yeah.
Yeah, printed really easily. We were talking about how mesmerizing it is to just sit and watch the machine. I've been doing this for printing in one form or another for over 10 years, and I could still just sit there and watch it.
Yeah, it's funny. I was saying that I feel like the rest of the world is probably bored and just thinks of 3D printers, it's just another tool in the shop, whatever, and everyone's got one and whatever. But, you know, every time it's just magic. It's just like, how do we have this, you know, ability? It feels very fortunate to be, you know, at a point in time when we've got this stuff.
Yeah, you were telling me your son does printer impressions?
So, I'm not sure what this says about me as a parent, but yes, it turns out my teenage son can do impressions of what printers sound like when you're trying to go to sleep and you can just hear printers through the wall. And he can do different generations of printers over the years.
Yeah, right, you were saying the circle.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Did I hear that,
I might have an
that
impression.
you can do impressions?
I can do an impression, but it's physical.
You have to guess the printer.
Okay, so
We're going to do a
guess who I
live printer
am.
impression.
I don't need this.
You might need more space.
Who am I? I could be, but Prussia doesn't do.
Yeah, it was a Prusa until the...
It's a bamboo. I'll be like waiting for my print to start, and then it's taking a while because it's doing, and I forgot to turn off all the calibrations, and so I just started like copying it, and then I'll just randomly be like waiting for things, and then I'll just be like doing a random printer dance, and it's weird. Ooh, bamboo boogie.
I like it.
I like it.
We should do more 3D printer charades.
Oh yeah. Who am I? Spaghetti. That's a new one.
That's a
Just
new
came
one.
up with that. I'll come up with more.
So, just,
Do we have any more questions?
question about filaments. This is totally off any script.
Unscripted.
I'm just curious, I mean, you obviously you're excited about TPUs. Like, what sort of, like, how many colors are you doing? Like, is this just like an early, like, testing the waters, or are you just gone, let's do everything?
Oh, you're interviewing
Somewhere in
us
between.
now.
Yeah.
So with TPU specifically, we have a lot of BattleBot friends and combat robotics, and they use a lot of TPU for their bots, and a lot of them are kids, and they want also like eye-catching designs. You're battling, people are coming to see your robot, and they want it to look good. And so we started actually for them, for the friends that are in these combat robotics programs. And hopefully, that's like we knew we had a market with them, and we're hoping that it's, you know, more consumer based, because I was talking to someone and they were like, oh, well, it's not really big in the consumer side. I'm like, but combat robotics are consuming TPU for their bots. They use PLA, TPU, ABS, they use all sorts of things, but especially for the lighter bots, no, the lighter bots, they can't use it. It's too powerful.
But that comment about it not being big in the consumer space, is that purely, though, because traditionally it was too hard?
PLA is too brittle for the...
PLA just falls apart.
Oh, you mean so printing is
So
not
like
big in that? Oh, okay.
TPU for like the tires,
Yeah.
it
Oh,
can
yeah, okay, I see.
handle.
They
I
use, in
understand
the
that.
like 30-pound bots, they'll use TPU for armor.
The teeny
It's-
bots
it's
can't
tough.
use the TPU because they won't break. It's too strong.
For the teeny...
But for larger bots,
one-pounders.
yeah, 30 pounds, 60, 200 pounds on the show battle bots, they're allowed to use TPU for certain parts. So actually this BattleBot team was, they were fighting and their robot flipped over and it got stuck upside, like on its back, and it couldn't self-right because it wasn't that way or that way, it was just standing. So they quickly printed a TPU little like wedge, and then it would never get stuck. They like literally just whipped it up for their next battle.
And what color was the wedge? Was it black?
It was I think clear.
Yeah.
Yes.
It wasn't,
Cookiecad,
it wasn't
we can
purple,
have all sorts
glittered,
of-
shiny.
Yeah, because we were talking about form and function, and very often in this, you know, in the engineering space, you'll find things that are just function, and form isn't even considered at all. And that was kind of what things were like before we, you know, decided to just bring in all the color.
So what you were asking before, we do plan on increasing our TPU colors just because we want to see more cool robots. They'll bring in more interest into the sport, and we want to support education, and we think that STEM is like where it's at. So we're just pouring in a lot. We're sponsoring. It's just super exciting for us as a company, and we just want to be excited by our brand so that, you know, it stays pretty and fun and exciting.
Yes, I can absolutely attest that you guys are always excited about what you're doing.
Yeah, I really hope in this coming, next year or so that we see a lot more designers designing for more materials, flexible materials.
As well as ABS now we have, so we have a lot of Cookiecad printers.
You do ABS?
We have ABS, so we have a lot of Vorons coming up, and we have some positrons. And on our table, we have a baby belt, so a little belt printer printed in Cookiecad. If you come by our booth, you can see that.
Yeah, I've got to say that, like, I didn't know you did ABS, but I don't care now because you do TPU, and that's much more interesting. Like, from a design point of view, I mean, that's just different. It's just, new opportunities.
Next time we're here, we're going to be wearing 3D printed shoes.
I have shoes here, but they're not very comfortable.
Oh, yeah.
My first iteration.
Because, you know what, there's not a lot of shoe designs.
Yes.
I think people who make the shoe designs haven't been trying to wear them.
Well, that's the thing. Like,
Well, I think they're just copying designs that are already out there as opposed to figuring out how to work within the confines of the 95A hardness that we're trying to print with.
We're going to see some clock spring loafers, maybe with gears and mechanisms.
completely impractical,
Over-engineered.
but gloriously embellished with
Yes.
moving parts. and,
Over-engineered.
Yeah, absolutely.
That would be incredible. Well, thank you so much for sitting with us and taking our questions.
And thank you for inviting me into your world of enthusiasm and excitement.
And if you haven't seen, he has a booth downstairs, so you can stop by. He has pins, stickers.
Oh yeah, if you haven't seen
Go get some
Clock
stickers.
Spring's designs, they
Some
are
pins.
incredible. He makes some of the most amazing mechanical and
He's on
designs.
printables.
Anything
Pick
he
it up.
makes that's mechanical and print in place will work right off the build plate. Perfect tolerances. And what I love most about the designs is that they are designed to be 3D printed. You don't take some object that exists and then just, make a new version of it. You're making stuff that probably could not be made in any other manufacturing method.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's the glorious thing about it is that you can go, this would never exist otherwise. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all for being here. And enjoy 3D Printopia.